Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The United States Supreme Court has delivered a historic verdict, one that will be remembered for generations to come, in a decision that has already begun to reshape the global economic landscape. The highest court in the land has weighed in on a matter that touches every corner of the world. The news sent shockwaves through global markets and capitals, as traders, policymakers, and business leaders scrambled to understand the full implications. Overnight, the world's financial centers were abuzz with speculation and analysis, as the verdict's impact rippled from Wall Street to Hong Kong. On October 29, 2025, the court struck down the sweeping global tariffs imposed by former President Donald Trump. These tariffs, once seen as a defining feature of American trade policy, had redrawn the map of international commerce, affecting everything from the price of steel to the cost of everyday electronics. Now, with a single ruling, the court has set the stage for a dramatic reversal. This is not just about economics or law, it's about the price of goods in your local shop, the stability of jobs in factories and offices, and the way America interacts with the rest of the world. For families, it could mean lower prices on groceries and electronics. For workers, it could bring new opportunities or new challenges as industries adjust to a rapidly changing landscape. Stock markets from Tokyo to London surged as investors welcomed the end of years of uncertainty. The lifting of tariffs was seen as a green light for global investment, and optimism swept through trading floors. For many, it was a sign that the era of trade wars and retaliatory tariffs might finally be coming to a close. For multinational corporations, the Supreme Court's decision signals a potential end to a costly trade war that had forced them to rethink supply chains, raise prices, and delay investments. Now, executives are cautiously optimistic, hoping for a return to stability and growth. But they know that the road ahead will not be without obstacles, as new rules and relationships are forged. Yet for protected industries, like steel, agriculture, and textiles, fierce global competition now looms. Many workers and business owners worry about what the future holds, as foreign products flood the market and old certainties are swept away. The coming months will test their resilience and adaptability as never before. The story began not in a courtroom, but in the White House, with a president determined to rewrite decades of American trade policy. What started as a bold experiment in economic nationalism has now come full circle, setting the stage for a new era in global trade, one defined by fresh challenges, renewed partnerships, and the hope of a more connected world. To truly grasp the significance of today's Supreme Court ruling, we need to rewind the clock and examine the chain of events that led us here. This decision didn't emerge in a vacuum. It's the culmination of years of political maneuvering, legal challenges, and bold executive action that have tested the boundaries of presidential power. The story begins with a pivotal moment in 2018 when the Trump administration invoked a rarely used provision of the Trade Expansion Act, Section 232, citing national security concerns. This move allowed then-President Trump to impose steep tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, affecting not just rival nations, but also some of America's closest allies. The justification? Protecting the backbone of American industry from what was described as unfair foreign competition and potential threats to national security. The tariffs were sweeping, targeting billions of dollars worth of goods. Factories and workers across the country became the face of this new economic nationalism, as the administration argued that a strong domestic steel and aluminum sector was essential for both economic prosperity and military readiness. This bold action was framed as a fulfillment of Trump's America First campaign promise, a pledge to revive American manufacturing and put domestic interests above global trade norms. Supporters cheered the move, seeing it as a long overdue correction to decades of perceived trade imbalances. But the administration didn't stop there. The tariffs quickly escalated into a full-blown trade war, most notably with China. The U.S. slapped tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese goods, prompting swift retaliation. Headlines around the world chronicled the tit-for-tat measures as global markets braced for uncertainty. In a move that stunned legal experts, President Trump then turned to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, a law originally designed to address extraordinary foreign threats. He used it to justify even broader tariffs, stretching the law's intent in ways never before attempted by a sitting president. No previous president had ever interpreted IEPA as a tool for imposing sweeping import duties. This marked a dramatic expansion of executive authority, raising urgent questions about the limits of presidential power and the role of Congress in regulating trade. The result was a volatile and unpredictable environment for global businesses. Supply chains were thrown into chaos, pricing models were upended overnight, and companies around the world scrambled to adapt to the new rules of international commerce. The ripple effects of these decisions are still being felt today, setting the stage for the Supreme Court's historic intervention. The legal case that reached the Supreme Court was a landmark test of presidential power. Challengers argued that Trump had overstepped his constitutional authority, using IEEPA as a blank check for tariffs. Congress, they said, holds the power to regulate commerce and control the purse, not the president. The case became a focal point for the debate over the growth of executive power. In August, the U.S. Court of Appeals sided with the challengers, ruling that Trump exceeded his authority under IEEPA. The court delayed its mandate, giving time for appeal and setting up today's dramatic Supreme Court showdown. Today, the Supreme Court delivered its answer. In a 6-3 decision, the justices affirmed the lower court's ruling, sharply rebuking the executive branch's expansive interpretation of its power. The majority opinion declared that IEEPA cannot be used as a broad tool to regulate foreign trade through tariffs. The court emphasized that only Congress can set major trade policy, not the president acting alone. The decision dismantles the legal foundation of years of global tariffs. This is a significant reassertion of congressional authority in an era of expanding presidential action. The Supreme Court's decision has landed like a political earthquake in Washington, sending shockwaves through the halls of power and deepening divides both between and within the major parties. The ruling, which many had anticipated but few fully expected, has instantly become the focal point of a fierce national debate. As the news broke, the city was gripped by a sense of urgency and uncertainty, with lawmakers, journalists, and citizens alike scrambling to understand the full implications of the court's move. For Democrats and anti-tariff Republicans, the decision is more than just a legal victory. It's a powerful vindication of their long-standing efforts to rein in what they see as unchecked executive authority. Many see it as a crucial check on presidential overreach and a long-overdue restoration of congressional power. The mood among these lawmakers is jubilant, with celebrations erupting on the Capitol steps and in private offices. They argue that the ruling reaffirms the Constitution's separation of powers and ensures that no single branch of government can act unilaterally on matters as consequential as trade policy. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a leading voice in the fight against the tariffs, hailed the decision as a victory not just for the rule of law, but for American families and businesses who have borne the brunt of the trade war. In a passionate speech, she emphasized that the court's ruling would help restore stability and predictability for small businesses, farmers, and manufacturers across the country. Shaheen's supporters echoed her sentiments, expressing hope that this marks a turning point in the ongoing struggle over trade policy. On the other side, former President Trump and his closest allies wasted no time in condemning the ruling. They denounced it as a politically motivated attack, orchestrated by opponents determined to undermine his legacy. Trump argued that the decision strips the executive branch of a vital tool needed to protect American workers and industries from unfair foreign competition. His supporters, visibly frustrated, warned that the ruling could weaken America's position on the global stage and make it harder to respond swiftly to economic threats. Pro-tariff Republicans, many of whom represent manufacturing and industrial states, called the decision a betrayal of the American worker and a surrender to what they describe as globalist interests. They argue that the court has sided with multinational corporations at the expense of local jobs and communities. At press conferences and rallies, these lawmakers vowed to fight back, promising their constituents that they would do everything in their power to restore the president's authority to impose tariffs and defend American jobs. Already the fallout from the decision is reshaping the legislative agenda on Capitol Hill. There are urgent calls from both sides for new legislation that would grant the president explicit tariff authority, setting the stage for a major political battle in Congress. Behind closed doors, lawmakers are drafting bills, negotiating alliances, and preparing for what promises to be a contentious fight over the future of American trade policy. The nation watches closely, knowing that the outcome will have far-reaching consequences for the economy, for workers, and for the balance of power in Washington. Beyond Washington, the economic impact of this ruling is already rippling through the American economy. For years, businesses and consumers have faced higher costs due to tariffs. A recent New York Fed survey showed 75% of firms passed on tariff costs to customers. The August Consumer Price Index had risen nearly 3% year-over-year as tariffs drove up prices. The automotive sector, hit hardest, saw car prices soar by thousands, with companies like GM and Volkswagen absorbing billions in extra costs. These numbers represent delayed investments, squeezed margins, and higher prices for everyone from farmers to families. The corporate world's reaction to the Supreme Court's decision has been swift and largely positive, though cautious. CEOs and CFOs, long frustrated by tariff uncertainty, are breathing a sigh of relief. One major automaker's CEO called the ruling a return to sanity, removing a massive variable from business planning. Industries from electronics to apparel, battered by tariffs, see this as a victory after years of costly supply chain adjustments. Adidas CEO Bjorn Gulden had warned of U.S. inflation and detailed efforts to mitigate tariff impacts. Today's news is a win for such companies. The decision nullifies recent 50% tariffs on goods from India and Brazil, allowing companies to stabilize operations. The Supreme Court's decision is a global event, and world leaders have responded with relief and optimism. American allies, long caught in the tariff crossfire, welcomed the ruling as a step toward stability and predictability. The Canadian government called it a positive move for North American trade, while EU officials hope it signals a shift toward cooperation. Financial markets worldwide surged as investors bet on higher profits and lower inflation. Currencies of trade-dependent nations strengthened, reflecting renewed confidence. The market rally is a clear signal of the economic damage the tariffs were seen to inflict globally. As the dust settles, a critical question remains: what happens now? The immediate path forward involves unwinding the tariff regime, a complex, lengthy process. Importers will seek refunds, companies must reassess supply chains, and the government faces logistical and diplomatic challenges. The focus now shifts to Congress, which must decide the future of American trade policy. The Supreme Court didn't outlaw tariffs, it ruled the president can't impose them unilaterally. The power to regulate trade now rests squarely with the legislative branch. Can Congress forge a coherent, long-term trade strategy, or will partisan gridlock leave businesses and consumers in uncertainty?